It has almost been 2 months since my last video. For the for a month, I was away because of Ramzan. I was taking a break, and then I was away on a family trip. So this feels like a fresh start to me, and I'm looking forward to see where this goes again. There are a lot of pending things I still need to do, and yeah, let's get started with the highlights today. So the to begin with, the first one is from extreme ownership. People talk about leadership requiring courage. This is exactly one of those situations. It takes courage to go to the CEO's office, knock on a door, and explain that you don't understand the strategy behind the decisions. You might feel stupid, but you will feel far worse trying to explain to your team a mission or strategy that you don't understand or believe in yourself. And as you pointed out, you're letting the boss down because she will never know that her guidance is not being promulgated properly through the ranks. So this kind of reminds me of another recent podcast that I listened to. I think it was on HPR about insubordination. And insubordination feels like a bad word, right? But the podcast actually explained how you're going to do it well, so that it actually helps the people involved. It helps yourself, it helps your boss, it helps the whole organization, because you're seeking the right answers, things that may not have been considered by anybody else. You're leading towards innovation. That's the topic of this of that podcast. But over here as well, it's a very similar thing. So if you don't understand a strategy, or if you don't agree with a strategy, if you find yourself that you're not aligned with a particular strategy or a particular action item, and you're staying silent about it, you're not helping anyone, you're not helping yourself, you're not helping the organization. Instead, seeking clarification or seeking a change, whatever it is, sometimes it may legitimately be a what's the word, it may legitimately be a gap in everyone's understanding, and you're fixing it by questioning it. Or it may be gap in your own it may be a gap in your own understanding, and you're fixing that by questioning it. So in either way, you're you're setting up the organization for success by questioning it. There is a saying that comes to my mind. When two people in business always agree, one of them is unnecessary. So it's again, like, it looks like it's pointing towards conflict, but this is actually healthy conflict. So moving on, everyday chaos. We have a large and quite clear vocabulary for the ways in which things can be unreal. In this section of this chapter, the author is talking about how we have a lot more words to describe a negative state rather than a positive state. And the author also kind of links it to, like evolutionary needs for human beings. As in, if it's a good situation, you're not worried about it too much, right? Everything's okay, right? You don't need to describe it, you don't need to talk about it all that long. So if you're happy, okay, you're happy, you're ecstatic, you're, what other words are there? Right, I can't think of more examples. But if you're not happy, you can be sad, you can be hurt, you can be injured, you can be upset, you can be I mean, again, I'm not thinking of all the examples, but I think in this section of the book, the author kind of gave an example of like 20 words or so, or maybe more. So the point over here, and again, I'm quite kind of forgetting the end point that the author was trying to make over here. It had, of course, something to do with machine learning. I suppose it was something to do with bias, but again, I'm not really remembering it, so I think it's best I move on to essentialism. What if we stopped celebrating being busy as a measurement of importance? Right. So this is not a highlight I've done. Usually my highlights are much longer, right? It's a supplemental highlight. But again, I think there's enough context over here. And this also reminds me of another book I've recently read, At Your Best. It has come up a few times over here. So in that also, it's talking about how we have kind of taken it upon our culture that being busy is the thing that you need to be productive. We have kind of equated busy with being productive, and it's kind of judged. If somebody today is not being busy, they look down upon, saying that, okay, no, you're not giving your 100% effort or whatever. You are expected to have a full calendar and stuff like that, like constantly run from one meeting to another and apologizing, saying, Sorry, the previous call ran over," or whatever. So, in a way, in our culture, in our corporate culture today, being busy is a measure of success or a measure of importance. That okay, I'm so busy. I'm always held up in some calls or something, and that's not helping anybody. That's not helping you. That's not helping the organization. It's especially not helping you because it's leading you towards the path of towards what's the word, burnout. It's leading towards burnout. It's reducing the quality of work as well. The kind of work that you do. um, uh, One of the things that's kind of changing today, but a very similar thing that's been there in our culture for long is less sleep is good. And I'm like, I'm I'm what's the word, not a victim, what's the word for this? I kind of think that too all the time, less sleep being good. So people who can manage with 5 hours of sleep, 4 hours of sleep, I still feel a little envious of them, that okay, they can get so much more done. But sleep is a superpower. If you can sleep 7 to 8 hours a day or at night, then you can. It seems intuitive that okay, you have lesser hours during the day, lesser work hours, but you're actually able to do a lot more work in that time. So it's something like that. It's very similar to that notion again. So let's move on. Thanks for the feedback. The greatest leverage is helping the people inside the system communicate more effectively. And as between giver and receiver, it's the receiver skills that have the most impact. Giver of the feedback and receiver of the feedback. We need to equip receivers to create pull, to drive their own learning, to seek honest mirrors as well as supportive mirrors, to speak up when they need additional appreciation or coaching or are confused about where they stand. As each receiver becomes more skilled at receiving, at creating pull, the organization gets better at it too. We pull together. The central theme of this book, I feel, is that the focus should be on the receiver of the feedback, not the giver. And again, that feels a little intuitive. When I read it, it felt like that to me because I always thought it's the giver's responsibility to give perfect feedback. But that's not helpful to anybody again, because there's nothing like perfect communication. There is always because communication is between two people, it gets affected by both people, and the book goes into a lot of different factors that gets involved over here: the past, the present, the future. I mean, like the tenses are at the tenses in one way, but also the biases that you might have built up, or that tendency to stick towards truth, that okay, no, I didn't mean that, okay, this feedback is wrong. We immediately reject feedback as wrong without even considering everything in it. So there are a lot of factors that go wrong when working with feedback, and that's why the book's point is, you need to train receivers to accept feedback better. So the most of the book is about that. How do you listen to feedback? So I won't go into all of that right now. I mean, this book has come up before in our highlights. But the highlight over here, it says that, we need to equip receivers to create pull. In other words, we need to train them that, okay, this is how you're going to receive feedback. There is this trend of radical candor that goes along similar lines as well. So, moving on. Kill it with fire. There is little downside to maintaining all systems as if they are legacy systems. It is easy to build things, but it is difficult to rethink them once they are in place. So, I recently, well, not finished it. I'm very close to finishing this book. So, this book is all about maintaining legacy systems, or the modernization effect, rewriting legacy systems or refactoring it. It's all about that. It's all about the human side of it. It's not a technical book in that sense, as in it's not a coding related book. It works with all different technologies. So this is in the beginning of the book itself. This highlight that, think of, even if you're building a fresh system, like, they say greenfield system, if even if you're building something from scratch right now, it helps in thinking of it from the lens of maintaining it as it was a legacy, as if it were a legacy system. It is like the highlight says, it's easy to build things, but it's difficult to rethink them once they are in place. So the principles that are outlined in the book, how you're going to set up communication, the team structure, like it covers Conway's law, for example. Apply those principles when you're building the software itself. Not, okay, let me build it and then think about it later. So the book goes quite deep into concepts like feedback loop, and how are you going to weigh the benefits of addressing technical debt over new features. A lot of different concepts over there. And this highlight is just saying that, okay, think of all of those when you're building the system rather than leaving it for a future modernization effort. Because that's going to happen. Another theme in the book is that we constantly underestimate how long our software lives. So that's going to happen. Your software may survive for for a long time, which means that, okay, you have to think of it right now, all of these things right now, not leave it for future. Moving on, six type of working genius. The genius of galvanizing is about rallying, motivating, and provoking people to take action around an idea or an initiative. People with this genius are naturally inclined to inspire and enlist others to get involved in an endeavor. They don't mind persuading people to rethink or change their plans in order to embark on something worthwhile. So there are six geniuses in the book. Galvanizing is the fourth one, and this highlight is just describing that genius, that what galvanizing looks like, and they're really people who get other people together to get something done. They're like the highlight says, they're about rallying, motivating, and provoking people. So people who are good at galvanizing, it's just describing that. And I better not go into all the other geniuses and all of that. It's a good book. Like the bulk of the book, maybe like 70% of book, or maybe even more, is like a fable. And yeah, the fable is a little, it's like it's rather simplistic, but it actually works, because it that fable helps in remembering all of these different geniuses. Like the wonder, invention, what was the discernment, galvanizing, enablement, and tenacity. It kind of helps in remembering all of these different geniuses. So it's a good book, and it's a very quick read. I think I've like what a day's read, maybe two. Moving on, the earned life. We are more likely to comply with the recommended course of action when failure to do so results in extreme pain or punishment, either physical, financial, or emotional. The author is just observing a fact that, if the failure to comply with the course of action is going to result in pain or punishment, we're going to comply with it. It's an observation into our psyche. That's I don't really remember the context where this comes up, so I don't think I can talk about it more. So I'm going to move on. Remote, not distant. The problem is that companies try to replicate the same experience in a virtual setting rather than thinking differently. Avoid copy pasting past practices into the new reality, Yurik said. What are you missing? What did those cultural interactions do for the team? Spell it out. Leaders need to recreate how did that activity help the teams rather than the activity itself. So, when we went remote, uh, people tried to kind of repeat the same thing, but just trying to find out how to do that in a virtual setting. And that's not helping. Like the highlight is pointing out that doesn't help. That's weird. Like that leads to things like Zoom fatigue and everything. What you need to do is go after the outcomes, like the highlight is saying. But I think it's pretty clear. I'll move on. Getting things done. Everything that might require action must be reviewed on a frequent enough basis to keep your mind from taking back the job of remembering and reminding. Right. So the one of the aspects of the book, or the system, getting things done system, is that your the place where you're keeping down your action items, or the context, the next action item that you need to pick up on a project, that should be easily accessible. That should be something that you're going to refer to all the time for it to work. Because if you're not going to look at it on a frequent basis, that thing still lives in your head. Your head is not letting you forget it, which means that you're not being productive with the other things that you need to do. So, you must be, whatever system you're using, notebook or an app, or whatever you're using, you have to look at it frequently enough. You have to actually use it so that your mind can now let go of it and you can focus on what needs to be done. Moving on, get it done. To learn from successes, all you need to do is repeat whatever you did to be successful the first time. Learning from failure requires a mental inversion. You learn what not to think, say, or do Through failure, you learn by eliminating possible solutions. If one isn't the answer, it must be the other. Okay, I don't really have anything to add on this, so I'm going to go and yeah, this is I'm going to skip it. I think what I'm 15 minutes again, so I'm going to call it a day. It's been a new start, and I'm going to rethink on how I'm doing this. But for now, I'm going to just restart this video series and keep doing it, and let's see how it goes. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.